Hello friends, and welcome to the Forgotten Past. On this channel, you'll explore untold stories, lost events, ancient discoveries, and hidden secrets from across history. Let's view the video. The epic struggle between England and the Vikings began with blood and fire, reshaping the fate of a nation. From coastal raids to full-scale invasions, the Norsemen from Scandinavia arrived as both conquerors and settlers. Their arrival marked the beginning of centuries of conflict, resistance, and cultural transformation across Anglo-Saxon England. The Vikings were fierce seafaring warriors from Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. Their mastery of shipbuilding and navigation allowed them to travel vast distances across the seas. They were not only raiders but also traders, settlers, and explorers, driven by the search for wealth, land, and fame beyond their homelands. Historians trace their first significant impact on England to the infamous raid on Lindisfarne in 793 AD. The peaceful monastery on the Northumbrian coast was ravaged by Viking warriors. Monks were killed, religious treasures looted, and churches burned. This shocking attack sent ripples of fear throughout Anglo-Saxon England. Monasteries became primary targets due to their wealth and vulnerability. Isolated along coastlines, they stored gold, manuscripts, and relics, offering easy pickings for the Norse raiders. But it wasn't just about riches. The Vikings struck at the heart of Christian England, undermining both faith and security. The Anglo-Saxons were completely unprepared for these fast-moving seaborne attacks. Their fragmented kingdoms lacked unity and naval defenses. Viking longships could appear suddenly along rivers or shores, raiding settlements and disappearing before local forces could respond. England's weaknesses were brutally exposed. As Viking raids intensified, so did their reputation for brutality. Their savagery, combined with unfamiliar battle tactics, made them both feared and hated. Stories of slaughter, pillage, and kidnapping filled the chronicles. The English began seeing the Norsemen not just as invaders, but as a terrifying, almost unstoppable force. Yet behind the violence lay complex motivations. The Vikings were driven by poverty, overpopulation, and the allure of foreign riches. Their arrival was not only a story of conquest but of migration, trade, and cultural collisions. The stage was set for a fierce and bloody rivalry that would define England's destiny. In the decades following the first Viking raids, their ambitions grew bolder. What began as lightning-fast attacks along the coasts evolved into full-scale invasions. The Norsemen no longer came only to raid, they came to conquer. England, divided and vulnerable, would soon feel the weight of their military might. Throughout the 9th century, Viking raids increased in frequency and intensity. No longer satisfied with isolated monasteries, the Norsemen began attacking towns, cities, and entire regions. Their longships swarmed English rivers, striking deep into the heart of Anglo-Saxon territory with terrifying efficiency and speed. The turning point came in 865 AD with the arrival of the Great Heathen Army. This formidable force of Viking warriors, larger and more organized than any before, landed in East Anglia. Unlike previous raiders, they came not just for loot, but to claim land, power, and kingdoms for themselves. The Great Heathen Army was led by legendary figures like Ivar the Boneless, Halfdan Ragnarsson, and Ubba. These sons of Ragnar Lothbrok, steeped in Norse warrior tradition, commanded respect and fear alike. Their combined leadership and ruthless ambition made the Viking threat greater than ever. The kingdom of Northumbria fell quickly. The once powerful northern kingdom was unable to resist the Norse onslaught. York, its capital, became a major Viking stronghold. The fall of Northumbria sent shockwaves across England, as other kingdoms realized the full scale of the invasion. East Anglia and parts of Mercia soon followed. Viking settlers established permanent control over vast regions, creating what became known as the Danelaw. Here, Norse laws, customs, and language took root, blending with local Anglo-Saxon traditions in ways that would reshape English society. The remaining English kingdoms, especially Wessex, fought to survive. Resistance was fierce, but the Viking tide seemed unstoppable. England was no longer facing isolated raids, it was locked in a brutal struggle for its very existence. The Norsemen had come to stay, and conquest was their goal. When hope seemed lost, a remarkable leader emerged, Alfred of Wessex. Crowned in 871 AD, Alfred would become known as Alfred the Great. The only English king to earn such a title. His leadership, determination, and vision were pivotal in turning the tide against the relentless Viking onslaught. Alfred inherited a kingdom under siege. The Vikings had already conquered much of England, and Wessex was their next target. Despite early defeats, Alfred refused to surrender. He reorganized his forces, fortified defenses, and studied the enemy, learning how to resist their brutal tactics effectively. The most defining moment came in 878 AD at the Battle of Edington. Facing overwhelming odds, Alfred led his army against the Viking forces of Guthrum. Through strategic brilliance and fierce resolve, the English emerged victorious. It was a critical blow to Viking ambitions in southern England. Following the victory, Alfred negotiated the Treaty of Wedmore. Guthrum and his Vikings agreed to withdraw to the Danelaw, and Guthrum himself converted to Christianity. Though peace was fragile, this agreement temporarily halted Viking expansion and bought Wessex much-needed breathing room. Alfred understood that military strength alone wasn't enough. He launched widespread educational reforms, promoting literacy and learning across his kingdom. Latin texts were translated into English, ensuring knowledge and governance could flourish. His reign sparked a cultural revival in the face of Norse aggression. One of Alfred's greatest innovations was the system of fortified towns, known as buzz. These defensive strongholds protected communities from Viking raids and allowed for rapid military mobilization. It marked a new era of organized defense and demonstrated Alfred's forward-thinking leadership. Alfred's legacy is not just of survival, but of defiance and renewal. He preserved Anglo-Saxon identity during England's darkest hour. His reign ensured that England would not fall entirely to the Norse invaders, laying the foundation for future unity and resistance that would ultimately change the nation's destiny. Despite Alfred's resistance, the Viking threat never truly disappeared. The early 11th century saw the rise of a new wave of Norse power, this time not as raiders, but as rulers. Danish kings would soon sit on the English throne, marking an era of foreign dominance over the English people. The first major blow came during the reign of King Athelred the Unready. Plagued by poor leadership and constant Viking incursions, his rule weakened the kingdom. His failure to effectively organize defenses made England vulnerable to renewed Danish aggression from across the North Sea. One of Ethelred's most notorious decisions was the St. Brice's Day massacre of 1002 AD. In a desperate move, he ordered the killing of all Danes living in England. Intended to eliminate the Viking threat, it instead enraged the Danes and escalated the conflict to a dangerous new level. In response, the Danish king Sweyn Forkbeard launched a brutal campaign against England. His forces swept across the land with devastating efficiency. By 1013 AD, Sweyn had conquered England entirely, forcing Athelred to flee and becoming the first Danish king to rule over the English. Sweyn's death in 1014 did not end Danish control. His son, Knut the Great, would prove to be an even more formidable ruler. Through both conquest and diplomacy, Knut established the vast North Sea Empire, uniting England, Denmark, Norway, and parts of Sweden under his rule. Interestingly, Knut's reign brought stability and prosperity. Despite being a conqueror, he respected English customs, promoted Christianity, and integrated Viking and Anglo-Saxon cultures. His leadership helped ease tensions and left a lasting impact on the nation's governance and society. The Danish rule reshaped England, blending Norse and English traditions. From legal systems to language and architecture, Viking influence became part of daily life. Though seen as conquerors, the the Danes left behind a legacy of cultural fusion that would forever alter the English identity. The dawn of 1066 marked the final and most dramatic chapter in the Viking struggle for England. Though decades had passed since Knut's rule, Norse ambitions remained alive. The English throne, left vulnerable by political chaos, became the ultimate prize for ambitious Viking leaders. The death of Edward the Confessor in January 1066 triggered a fierce succession crisis. Edward had left no direct heir, and several powerful men laid claim to the throne. Among them was Harald Godwin's son, a skilled English noble who was crowned king shortly after Edward's death. But Harald's claim did not go unchallenged. Across the North Sea, Harald Hardrada, king of Norway, prepared for war. A seasoned warrior with vast experience, Hardrada saw himself as the rightful ruler of England, citing old Viking agreements and bloodlines as justification for his invasion. In September 1066, Hardrada's massive fleet sailed towards England. Joined by Tostig Godwin's son, Harald's exiled brother, the Viking army landed in the north, ready to carve out a new Norse kingdom. The invasion was swift and brutal, with towns falling under Hardrada's control. The decisive clash came at the Battle of Stamford Bridge near York. Despite being caught off guard, King Harald Godwin's son marched his army north with remarkable speed. The two forces met in a bloody confrontation that would mark the end of Viking military dominance in England. The battle was fierce. Hardrada's warriors fought valiantly, but the English emerged victorious. Harald Hardrada was killed in the fighting, along with most of his army. It was a catastrophic defeat for the Norse and effectively ended Viking hopes of conquering England. Though victorious, Harald's army was exhausted. Just days later, William of Normandy invaded from the south, leading to the famous Battle of Hastings. While the Vikings had failed, their invasions had weakened England, paving the way for the Normans to claim the crown and end Anglo-Saxon rule. Though the Viking invasions ended in defeat, their legacy in England is undeniable. The Norsemen left behind more than bloodshed, they reshaped the nation's identity. From language and culture to law and settlement, the fingerprints of the Vikings still mark the land and its people today. One of the most obvious legacies is linguistic. Hundreds of English words, especially in northern dialects, have Norse origins. Words like sky, egg, knife, and even husband trace their roots to the language of the Viking settlers, showing how deeply their influence became woven into daily life. Place names across England also reflect the Norse presence. Towns ending in by, thorp, or thwaite are of Viking origin, meaning farm, village, or clearing. From Grimsby to Whitby, these names serve as living reminders of the Norsemen who once settled those lands. Genetic studies reveal that the Viking impact wasn't just cultural but biological. Populations in parts of northern and eastern England show significant Scandinavian ancestry. The descendants of Viking settlers blended into English society, contributing to the diverse makeup of the modern English people. The Vikings also influenced English warfare and naval traditions. Their longships inspired future English shipbuilding, while their hit-and-run tactics reshaped military strategies. The English learned from their former enemies, adopting elements of Viking warfare into their own defenses and conquests. Even legends and folklore bear the mark of Norse influence. Tales of warriors, sea monsters, and epic voyages echo Viking sagas. The fierce image of the Viking raider, half truth, half myth, became part of England's cultural memory, inspiring stories for generations to come. Ultimately, the Viking Age was not only about destruction but transformation. Their raids, settlements, and wars forced England to adapt, unify, and evolve. From language and blood to legend and law, the legacy of the Norse still shapes England, a testament to the lasting power of their arrival. Thanks for watching The Forgotten Past. If you enjoyed the journey, like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a hidden story or untold truth. New discoveries await. See you in the next video.